We are back with more on News Talk, Saga 960. So very glad you could join us on this edition of the Mark Petranis Show. Well, this week we had word of an apology of sorts from Scotiabank to Benjamin Dichter, who was one of the organizers of the convoy. But it wasn't an apology of sorts. It was definitely an apology. The bank said they were sorry for the frustration and the inconvenience associated with freezing bank accounts. Hundreds of people in Canada had their accounts frozen, and I think the banks are still facing the backlash from that incident. The bank went on to say, well, really, they were working at the behest after a notification from the RCMP suggesting that really it was the cops who pushed the idea of freezing accounts. And now we've got the banks, the big five, trying to make amends, trying to maybe to ease any ill will going on between themselves and their customers. It's been said, according to some numbers, that Canada lost hundreds of billions of dollars when people took their money out of the financial system in Canada, fearing that it had deteriorated into a communist country that was now going to make a habit of seizing people's assets anytime they felt like it. But a little bit of good news. We have Andy Lee on the show, and Andy, after having her accounts frozen for a while, she couldn't access even money to get food for her kids, has just found out that her bank, the bank that she had been dealing with, has just restored at least some of her services. Welcome to the show, Andy.
Yeah, hi there, Mark. Yeah, it was a big day for me. So,
What happened?
um, well, we don't know what happened exactly. So last week, I was talking to my private bankers because I'm moving out of my bank, so I was getting prepared to do all of that. And they started asking some questions because even though they don't know exactly what happened, and so then today, my bank just emailed me and said that they're going to work on reinstating my account. So,
Well, this comes hot on the heels of word of an apology. And I don't know if those things are linked, but we have had reports that Scotiabank apologized to Benjamin Dichter
mm,
for the frustration of having been subjected to this embarrassing, this humiliation of having their accounts frozen. He went to buy something and couldn't access his money. And so now we have this. I mean, do you think it's a move on the part of the banks to try and restore confidence in their services?
I think it is. I think like the deeper we get into these committee meetings on the usage of the Declaration of Emergencies Act, I think the more we're getting more questions than we're getting answers. We've had the RCMP testify. We've had people on the bank boards testify, and there's still a lot of questions. So I think the banks are sort of backtracking and realizing that realistically speaking, I mean they depend on people to use their services, right? Their businesses. So the position that they got put in, if I were the banks, I would be very upset because they got put in an uncomfortable position where they were asked to crack down on people that maybe, they didn't want to, but the government told them to. So they were sort of have been put in this uncomfortable, position where do you follow the government's orders or do you go against them and do what's in your client's best interest, right? And so we know that a lot of people took their money out of banks, and there was a run on the banks, and the banks lost a lot of money. And I think that as more things come out and it's clearer that the justification for the usage of this act is questionable, then you're going to see the banks, and this is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that they're distancing themselves and saying, um, you know, we apologize for, being a part of this. It's sort of manning up a little bit in a way, and that's really, really good. I mean, the question still remains though, is that if the banks didn't want to do it, I mean, why did they go along with it? They went along with it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, are they going to stand up there and testify? And are we going to hear, exactly, exactly what happened, because we know it wasn't just people that the RCMP directed on, on behalf of the government. It wasn't just RCMP directing bank accounts to be seized. Some people's accounts got seized as collateral damage for whatever, transactions were flagged and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good thing to see. Like I said, it's a good thing for me. I've been not able to e-transfer since mid-February. So it was nice to see that they are coming out and saying that they're going to, let me just see their exact wording on that. So I have to obviously keep confidentiality. So we've had a look at how to reactivate your e-transfers was the wording that they gave me. So, that's sort of a confession that, they're acknowledging that it was deactivated. This is one of the most concrete things that I've heard from my bank in a while. And like I said, last week I did reach out to, my own bankers and, starting to move my funds out and, asked what was going on. It's also possible too, though, that there's another thing is that people could be flagged outside of the government and outside of the RCMP. People can also be flagged by FinTrack, right? So that's sort of our financial intelligence watchdog. They look for suspicious transactions. They look for domestic terrorists. They look for money laundering, things like that. So that's the other thing, is that some of this may be confounded because possibly, I questioned whether maybe FinTrack had flagged me for whatever reason, maybe inappropriately. But that was my question.
Well, this is the email I wanted to run this past you. This is an email that was sent by, from the Scotiabank CEO's office, asking that the protest spokesperson, Benjamin Dichter, please accept our sincere apologies for the frustration and inconvenience this situation may have caused. This is obviously over the freezing of his account, and thank you for your patience. They went on to say, we can confirm that the financial institutions acted quickly to unfreeze accounts after the RCMP notified us that it believes that individuals and entities previously identified are no longer engaged in conduct or activities prohibited under the Emergency Measures Act. So they were of the shoot first, ask questions later school, freezing accounts, and then finding out later that it was unjustified. But here they're obviously punting it to the police, the RCMP. Do you think that there's a certain amount of buck passing here as everybody scrambles to try and justify what happened or absolve themselves of being directly responsible?
Yeah, well, I think we've seen a lot of buck passing, right? It's like you watch these committees and it's like, well, I didn't do it and I didn't do it and they did it and nobody asked for this act, right? The police didn't ask for it. The government says, well, yeah, the police asked for it. So like I said, I think, we're getting more and more questions as opposed to more and more answers. But maybe this is maybe this is a piece of the puzzle. And, hopefully we'll see the banks coming forward more in committee meetings and maybe clarifying their position. And like I said, I do think that they were used as a little bit of a political tool and a scapegoat. Like I just said, let's not come out against the banks right now too quickly. Maybe they were a bit too hasty to enact this, these measures on people's bank accounts. But at the same time, this didn't come out of nowhere, right? This all stemmed from the government wanting to enact the Emergencies Act, right? So I'm sort of like eyes on the prize here. Let's keep laser focused on the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is that this act was enacted and it caused a whole bunch of chaos in our banking system, right? So I think, let's just wait and see what else comes out. And again, this government have a knack for pushing responsibility off to other institutions. That's what they do, is they take the focus off of them and they're really, really good at pinning it on somebody else. Like I'm reading that fantastic book now, and we're going to get the author on here one of these days, on the We Charity. And that's sort of that was, and we have to get this author on because the book's just fascinating. But it's kind of, the storyline reads to that effect, is that this government excels at taking the focus off of them and putting the focus onto somebody else's back, right? Making somebody else the target. So I question now if that's the fact. It's going to be interesting to see if other banks come out and follow suit, right?
Yeah.
But in any event, it was, it was a good day. I think it was a win. It was an acknowledgement that, a lot of people questioned whether my my ability to transfer was actually frozen. So,
Oh, well, here you have the email now proving that that was the case.
and
Here's yeah, I
that's
mean,
fair,
because
right?
yeah,
And
right.
like I said, I don't know. That's a fair question to ask because it was a really strange thing to have happen, but it did happen. But a lot of people believed in me, and fought for me, and yourself and the National Telegraph. They fought for me from the get go, and a lot of people offered to help. And so it looks like we're seeing some reversal of the fallout of these policies. And I would love to see Scotiabank come out and clarify this,
Yeah, absolutely,
and further
absolutely.
distance themselves, because like I said, it was bad for their business.
Yeah,
And
that's why they're doing it.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
they
they're not
were
doing it
used.
out of the goodness of their
I
heart. They're doing it
mean,
because it was a disaster for them and
they
the
were
other
used
banks. Here was your
as
tweet from
political.
earlier. All of a sudden today, my bank reactivates out to reinstate, reaches out to reinstate my ability to e-transfer. Why did
Yeah.
you say all of a sudden?
Well, I mean, it just happened on this day where this story came out, right? And there's a lot of,
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
there's a real letter from the CEO of Scotiabank in there. It's not speculation. And there's a lot of interest and a lot of people talking about this, and we've got our politicians talking about this. And like I said, it's an interesting move on this chessboard, and I think it's a little bit of a telling move that the banks feel like they are taking the hit and they're taking the punishment, and maybe
Yeah,
that they were used as political pawns, right? And regardless of their action, like I said, they shouldn't be scapegoated in lieu of letting this government off the hook for what I think the responsibility should be laid squarely
yeah,
at their feet. Of course, they're the only people not testifying at committee, basically, right? Is sort of the people in the PMO that would have been having these discussions. I mean, we see Lametti testifying, we see Marco Mendocino testifying, we see Brenda Lucke testifying from the RCMP. They're all just citing cabinet confidentiality. I mean, Brenda Lucke citing cabinet confidentiality is really interesting because, as far as I
oh yeah,
know,
she might as well be in, she might as well be in cabinet since
as
she
far
worked
as I know,
for
our
but
RCMP.
I got to ask you this: can you forgive the banks? I mean, for what they've done.
Yeah, well, I think we have to get deeper into, like I said, because there's another possibility, and that's that the bank didn't act of their own accord and that they didn't act according to the RCMP. The other question is that maybe they acted in accordance with FinTrack. And so that's a very real possibility, is that I could have got flagged by FinTrack. And so if that happened, the bank's pretty much powerless to prevent that, and that will stay with me. Like, it doesn't matter if I move banks or anything like that. But the fact that they're attacking this and trying to reinstate my e-transfer ability says that maybe that wasn't the case. It wasn't FinTrack, because I don't know if they can contest that, because that's actual, intelligence. I don't know if they can actually remove those flags. So that tells me that maybe it was, flagged, and they're acknowledging that maybe it was flagged in an error, right? And
Well, we'll have to get to the bottom of it. Please stay on top of this and update us when you get a chance, Andy. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
it's a busy life. It's a busy life, yeah, and now I'm fighting online with, I'm talking about organizing a protest. I've never organized a protest in my life. I just don't know what to do, right? I did make a promise.
I'm sure you'll figure it out.
I like to try to keep my promises, and I
Yeah.
did say last year that if we weren't free by this time next year, I would, help lead a protest.
Okay.
Canada Day, I don't know the first thing about leading a protest, to be honest. I know I'm gonna be in Ottawa, Canada Day. I wanna meet
Well,
Jake Scott in
it's a
person.
huge undertaking, I'm sure, but you'll if
Yeah,
anybody can do it.
I'm gonna reach out to some of these organizations and see what they think,
All right.
and see, we have to make sure everything's done legally, obviously,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Get all your papers in order, unless you want to end up like
well,
tomorrow
like
leaves.
tomorrow, well, I think
Yeah.
that's the crux of
Yeah.
her punishment is that she really is being made a horrible example of, and I think part of it is to,
Well, yeah.
try
Well,
to deter somebody like me that
well,
might say,
exactly. That's the sign of a tyrannical government who doesn't
right? It's
give
sort
a
of like
damn
you
about their
want me to
people.
think
About its
twice
people. Yeah.
before you think about protesting and things like that. I'm already being reported. I asked a question as to whether it be wise to protest outside of airports, not even on the ground, but outside of
Yeah. Bad
airports.
idea.
And I've got
I
people,
mean,
reporting me
well,
to the
certainly not
RCMP.
on airport grounds. I got a bail, but
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
So yeah,
I
well, like I
appreciate you
said,
doing this, Andy, as
let's yeah,
always.
thanks for having me, and we'll be back, and and thank you for fighting for me, and BJ, and
Happy
Gord
to do it. Happy to do it. All right. Thank you.
and everybody. So
See ya. Bye, Andy.
bye.
All right. That's it for this edition of the Mark Petroni Show. Appreciate you tuning in. Be safe. Stay strong. Let's do it again soon, shall we? Bye bye for now.